There we go.
There we go.
We made it.
Ta-da.
There it is. Almost there. We got one more coming up. But man, we are excited to join you tonight. It looks like we finally made it, all 5 platforms.
Going strong.
Well, here we are. It is Monday Night Live. The lovely Kate Simmons. I'm Dee Nixon out of sunny St. George, Utah with TurningLeaf Health and Wellness.
The best night of the week.
There it is. Goes it in. We are super excited to join you tonight and to jump into our life coaching topics. Again, we're always working to bring you content that is timely and appropriate and helpful. We love it when you are throwing suggestions and requests our way.
Yes.
And to that end, here's our topic.
Here's our topic
for today is one that is pressing down on a lot of families. It is school.
Yes. I really am super lucky, and I work with a lot of teens right now.
Yes, you do.
Which is just incredible. Did a super fun teen leadership workshop over the weekend, and back to school is a big deal.
Yes.
It is a big deal, you guys. And I feel like, okay, full transparency about me.
Oh, good.
When I went shopping over the weekend to Walmart, right, and back to school is there. And I told my sister, I was like, oh my goodness, I love back to school time. Like, I just get so excited. The trapper keepers come out, the pens, the highlighters, right? And I'm 40 years old and I still get super excited over this. But I know that isn't always the energy that surrounds back to school. Right. I know that, and which is the reason we're having the topic today,
right, that
for a lot of kids and a lot of students, it's filled with anxiety. It's filled with fear. There's a lot of expectation, and it can feel very anticipation. It can feel like a huge burden, depending on where your child's at in this back to school spectrum. We hope today to cover some coping skills and strategies about how to help them go back to school most successfully.
Yeah, and with parents, for a lot of parents, this has been a long-awaited summer event.
Yes.
and the counting down to the opportunity to get the children back into kind of a structured environment and a structured situation. It's also stressful, as parents are really working to get their kids the accommodations that they need and the supplies that they need, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. And so, we first of all, applaud our education system and thank our teachers, especially those of you that have been working so hard the last 2 to 3 weeks in really getting your classrooms put together and whatnot. My amazing daughter-in-law is, an educator, and I'm just so impressed by how much energy and effort she puts into preparing her classroom.
Yep. My sister's the same.
Yeah, they both, so we both have teachers in our families, and we're both very, very grateful. So today's topic, we really wanted to talk about how to get parents prepared and students prepared to be able to get back to the inevitable day that will be forthcoming. And for some of you that are watching, it was last week.
Oh my goodness.
So there are some schools that are already in progress. This will be their second or their first, full week.
Right.
And for our education system, it starts Thursday, and then others, it'll be the next couple weeks. So as we're moving forward into school, there's a couple things that we've got to touch on. And the one thing that I really appreciated that you brought out, Kate, is the emotional aspect of it. The emotional, there's a lot of different emotions. So we've got those that is a lot of anticipation, anxiety, frustration, like dread. There's the excitement, the gratitude. So there's a lot of these emotional experiences that are going on, and they can all go on within the same person.
Absolutely. You can watch an emotional arc over the first 40 minutes, getting them up for school in the morning that first day, right? Like you'll just hit all of them all around the clock there.
Yes. It is, and it's a challenge. And as we get into this opportunity, I really want to challenge us with a couple things. the first thing that I want is for parents, and speak to the parents, and then we'll jump on the teens and the kids stuff here, not just teens. But parents, it's going to be really important to understand that with this emotional upheaval, our children are going to be in a lot of different emotional states. It's very easy for us as parents to try to control it, to mitigate it, to try and direct it or redirect it. Sometimes we as parents, we take it personal and we allow those emotions to affect how we are interacting with our kids. And so it's important for us, first of all, to recognize that things are going to be a little soupy for a minute.
That's a really good adjective. Soupy.
It's going to be a little soupy.
Yeah. And I love that you bring up not personalizing whatever emotional experience that your child is having, right? Like, because let's be honest, ladies and gents, it has little to nothing to do with you. You may be getting the backlash of it. You may be getting the result of, right? You're the one experiencing the tantrum or the isolation or the meltdown or the anger or the jitters, right? Like all of those things. You're at the forefront of experiencing their emotional reaction, but it really has little to do with you, and it has everything to do with this anticipation, this big beginning, this new teachers, new classes, new all of it. Friendships coming back, maybe friends that they lost that they're going to have to see again. There's lots going on here, and very little of it has to do with you. So why on earth would we personalize that?
Right.
Why would we take that on as our own?
Yes. And I do see that in other areas too, where we're taking on, when our children get into that emotional discomfort, we kind of try to step in front of the bullet, so to speak, the metaphorical bullet, and we try to guard or shield or redirect. And in doing so, we can at times keep our children from being able to own their own emotional state or being able to own their own emotional experience. And by doing that, then they turn to us and look to us to tell them how to cope with it, instead of allowing them to develop or create a coping mechanism for it. And so we've got a lot of these different types of things that are going to be experiencing. And we've got to be able to, as parents, be able to support that.
Yes. So I think a big piece of that, not personalizing, and to learn how to really just kind of put it back with them and then help them process it, right? So the first thing for me too, I don't know if this comes into play for a lot of you. I imagine that it does. But when your child or your teen has an emotional reaction, sometimes it's really easy to start to feel that same emotion, right? And so then we adopt it that way, and then we try to fix it and solve it instead of, once again, like you were saying, like, start asking the questions, right? Like, what are you feeling? Why are we feeling that? What would we like to be experiencing?
Right.
And begin to seek to understand. We love talking about this on our lives. We do it all the time, I feel like. But first, just being a good listener, right? Like hearing them out, asking really good questions that open them up into what it is that they're actually experiencing, instead of just personalizing it and going after trying to fix it.
Yeah, very true.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, we do have to lead the conversation and allow them to process and to hear their frustrations, hear their feelings, but also we want to be able to not be throwing fuel on the fire, so to speak. And so as we listen to it, it is important for us to not take it on or to run with it, but we've got to help them process through those emotions and process through what's happening. So we as parents, we know already that this is going to be another challenging year. Last year was a very challenging year. And I'm seeing some comments come over on one of the other feeds where we've got kids that are going to be going back to school, and they're going to be dealing with masks at some point, depending on your school system and where you're at. And there's a lot of these types of things where we're going to have to navigate through them as parents. The key in all of that is to allow that experience to be what it is. There are certain things that we can't change. There's certain things that we can't do anything about, but we can listen, we can support, and we can help that child process it and to talk through it. One of the other comments is talking about some of the emotions So we get into the anxiety, we get into those feelings that start to happen, the depression. So as parents, some of the things that we can do with anxiety and depression. Firstly, with anxiety is we have to work to help our children stay in the present moment that they're in. A lot of anxiety, the majority of our anxiety, comes from the fear of the future or the fear of what may happen or what we may experience, and not feeling like we're ready or capable of handling it. Some of that comes because of the emotional discomfort we've experienced in the past. And quite honestly, some of that becomes because we as parents are projecting that energy onto our children and they don't know how to respond to it. Mm-hmm. So in these situations, we really want to work on the mindfulness and meditation stuff. We want to work on teaching our children to stay present in the moment, asking questions like, are you safe right now? Are you okay right here? Working to help them feel their feet, feel the space that they're in, feel the body that they're in right now. They're going to want to spin and go into the what ifs and the what could happen and the maybes and the shoulds and all the things that at the moment aren't serving them. So again, parents, as I always say, you can't teach what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So as parents, you've got to be working this system yourself. For depression, the children that we struggle with depression comes from feelings of no options, hope, no solutions, no alternatives, and no hope. So a lot of times children will create that feeling and they'll feel like there's no hope or there's no choices, etc. Mm-hmm. So we as parents, we really have to work to help them create hope. One of the best ways for us to do that is to work to help them express faith. Not just like the religious faith, if that makes sense. There is that. But faith in themselves, faith in what they created last year, faith in what they're working to create this year, faith in those things. And as they express faith, that creates hope in themselves or hope for what's moving forward. So we've got a lot of these energies, a lot of these emotions, but those are a couple too that were brought up over here that I would challenge you, and thank you for bringing those up. Alyssa, we appreciate that. But these are some solutions that we can use.
Yes, and I think it's super powerful in going to the layer and the level of attempting to help your child process through that emotion and not just dismissing it.
Right.
It's really easy for us as adults to be like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be great. You got a great teacher. So-and-so is going to be in your classroom. You guys are friends. And just try to kind of sweep things under the rug and like make it okay and make it better, because we're feeling uncomfortable. Usually we just want to get in and fix it.
Right.
Because we love them so much,
And we don't want them to feel feelings that are uncomfortable.
We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to be experiencing anxiety. We don't want them to be experiencing depression. We know that those feelings are uncomfortable, and then we want to get in and fix it as quickly as possible and then move through life, because it's not exactly the most fun experience trying to drag a kid to school who's having a lot of anxiety about it, right?
Right. And don't forget where you are.
I won't.
I do want to stress, parents, help your children understand the difference between anticipation and anxiety.
Yes.
A lot of parents are out there are calling anxiety and anticipation. They're putting them together as the same thing. They're not.
Right.
They're two different emotions. We need to separate the two. Anticipation, yes, it's going to feel like anxiousness. There's going to feel some anticipation. But that's different than anxiety. Anxiety is fear of the future. Anticipation is, okay, this is coming, and it can be a very healthy, exciting thing. So make sure you help your children process that. I didn't mean to. I want to grab a hold of what you were saying.
I thought that was a really good point to bring out. So in this attempt to help manage these emotional waves as they come through, not only are we not going to personalize it, but also validate them. Don't just dismiss what they're thinking, right? And feeling like, oh, you've got this. Oh, you're a senior this year. Why on earth would you be struggling with this so much right now, right? Wherever they're at in their school journey and their experience of it, validate it. Once again, seek to understand, hear them out, see what it is that they've got going on inside of them that's causing this experience. then you get to find out, are we anxious or are we a little anticipatory?
It's this anticipation.
Right,
yes.
exactly. And so in that, seeking to validate them, let them know that, yeah, man, new beginnings are a little bit scary. Yeah. It's like going off the high dive for the first time, right? And getting up there and being like, oh my gosh, the water is really far down there. I'm not sure if I'll live. And being able to help them process that through. Another piece that I really love to go to here is evidence, right?
I was just about to go there.
I love that. Not in an effort to dismiss or not validate them, but help remind them of the times that they've been successful in the past.
And what they've created.
Exactly. So what were you going to say about evidence?
Same thing. I love it. You took it. Go. Home run.
Well, evidence is just one of my most favorite coping strategies ever. And we've actually over the last couple of weeks talked a lot about in group, and I think on here and just in some sessions that I've had, in getting to a place where all of the stuff begins to be really great information. All the positive evidence that we get together, as well as maybe some of the constructive criticism that we get from others, it just becomes really interesting information for us. So to be able to go back and say, hey, let's talk about the beginning of school last year. What were some of the things that you felt helpful, that helped you feel brave or empowered, or any of these other experiences, right?
Yes.
These energies, emotions that we want to be experiencing. What helped you feel brave last year?
Yes.
Oh, I remember I had a super cool backpack, or I remember that Bobby was in my class. Oh, I remember you promised me that you would be there to pick me up after school at the end of the day. Oh, I remember. And then finding those places of evidence to reinforce the fact that they have everything that they need to keep themselves safe and to start their school year off in a great way, in a forward motion way.
Yeah, and then reminding them a lot of times of their abilities.
Yes.
I think a lot of times we try to force things, like, you're so good at this and people are going to like you because of that. And that's not necessarily helpful. Sometimes we have to remind our children of using the evidence of, well, look at what you created before. Yes, this year you're going to be facing new topics and new subjects. But last year it was a little daunting at the beginning as well.
Right.
What did you do? How did you do that? How did you? And this is the important thing, is help them recognize what they created. How did you overcome that last year? How did you create those grades last year? How did you overcome that stumble where you felt like you couldn't get there or whatever it was, and help them through this? Now, again, this is going to be a challenging year for us. As we kind of go into it in an uncertain energy ourselves as parents, we don't know what's going to happen as we kind of get back into the fall and in the winter months. We're hoping that things remain open. We're hoping that things will continue to be normal and healthy. And a lot of that depends upon us doing our part. We need to stay home if we're sick. Keep your kids home if you're sick. Wash your hands. Use common sense in these ways. If we need to mask up, mask up. If you got to keep a distance, keep a distance. Cough into your elbow. All the common sense things.
Well, can we even talk about the things that sometimes, I know that we get into this place of common sense, but going into the school year too, make sure your kids are sleeping.
Yes.
That you're getting rest. Our bodies need rest in order to be able to stay healthy, right?
Yep.
Make sure they're eating well, that you're eating well, like into these places of common sense.
Other things too, as you said that, I'm glad. Vitamin D and zinc.
Yes, please.
These are things you can pick up. Inside Out Hyperbaric, you can pick them up there. Supplements there. Pick them up at the store, wherever it is. But having your kids fortified with vitamin D and zinc as we get into the winter months. Any of these types of things are going to help us from having to go back to. So let's do our part, but at the same turn of the coin, let's not go into it with anxiety and fear.
Right.
Let's go into it with confidence and strength. Reminding our children, last year was probably the worst it's going to get. This year may be uncomfortable, awkward, and goopy and soupy. But the reality is, I think we're going to be able to get through this coming year, and we'll be able to be in person, et cetera, if we do our part.
Yes, and I love bringing it back into that space of personal power, right?
Yep.
What can I do, and what can you do to help create an amazing school year?
Yes.
And all of those places of remember what you did last time. Remember how it was so tricky to go from being in school and then spring break happening and then we're online and then we got back in, like remind them of all of the kids that are in school right now, you guys, they've had a wild ride.
Yep.
They really have.
Yep.
And sort of remind them of how resilient they are and how completely capable, and helping them remember that too is going to get us really, really far.
Yep.
Whew, that was fun.
We got a lot through
Jeez.
there. and so I love that. So thank you over here. Rest, sleep, zinc, D, multivitamins. Yep. We just got to keep everybody healthy.
Take care of you.
We sure appreciate everybody. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking and sharing our videos with those that are in need of this type of information and insight.
Yes, we love you, and we wish you a wonderful week getting back to school wherever you're at across the country and the world. And we will see you next Monday Night Live.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night. I don't know if that really works, but we sure do try every time.
We do try.
What is happening over here?
Did it end? Almost.